For the next few minutes, you're about to experience a rescue story that reminds us how powerful compassion can be, even when it comes from the most unexpected place. In this video, you'll see how a helpless baby deer found itself in a life-threatening situation and how an unlikely hero, a small cat, became the reason that story did not end in tragedy. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss more emotional, real-life rescue stories and educational content like this. Now imagine a quiet morning in the countryside, the kind of place where nature usually moves slowly and peacefully. The air is calm, the grass moves gently with the wind, and the sounds of distant birds echo across the fields. At first glance, everything seems perfectly normal. But hidden within that peaceful landscape, something fragile and vulnerable is happening, something that most people passing by would never notice. Not far from a narrow dirt path surrounded by tall grass, a tiny baby deer lies quietly on the ground. It is so small and still that it almost blends into the earth around it. Its legs are thin and shaky, its breathing slow and careful. Anyone unfamiliar with wildlife might assume that the young deer is simply resting, but the truth is very different. The tiny baby deer is now completely alone. In the wild, newborn deer often stay hidden while their mothers search for food nearby. It is a survival strategy meant to protect them from predators. The young deer remains silent and motionless, relying on camouflage and stillness to stay safe. Usually, the mother returns within a short time, but sometimes nature doesn't follow the usual pattern. On this particular day, something had clearly gone wrong. Hours may have passed since the mother was last seen. The baby deer remains in the same place, weak and uncertain. Without its mother, its chances of survival slowly begin to shrink. Newborn fawns are extremely delicate. They depend on warmth, protection, and nourishment from their mothers to stay alive. Without that support, the outside world becomes a very dangerous place. What makes this moment even more remarkable is that no human is around to notice the situation at first. There are no rescue teams, no wildlife experts, and no people searching the area. The entire scene unfolds quietly, almost invisibly, as nature continues moving forward. But then something unexpected happens. A small cat appears near the path. At first, the cat seems like any ordinary stray wandering through the countryside. It moves carefully, observing its surroundings with the quiet awareness that animals often have. Its paws step lightly over the ground, and its ears twitch as it listens to every sound in the distance. Then it notices the baby deer. The cat stops.
For a moment, it simply watches. The tiny fawn remains still, its wide eyes quietly observing the stranger that has approached. What happens next is something that no one would normally expect. Instead of ignoring the helpless animal, the cat slowly moves closer. It doesn't show aggression. Instead, its behavior suggests something far more surprising. Curiosity mixed with a strange sense of concern. In the natural world, animals usually follow simple instincts, but sometimes behavior appears that challenges those expectations. The cat stays. It remains close to the fawn, alert and watchful. At that moment, the countryside holds an unusual scene, a tiny predator sitting beside the vulnerable. No one is there to witness it yet, but this unexpected meeting between two fragile lives is only the beginning of a story that will soon take a surprising turn.
At one point, it gently approaches the fawn's face and sniffs carefully, as if checking whether the little deer is still alive. The baby deer responds with a faint movement of its head. Its large eyes blink slowly, reflecting both fear and exhaustion. The cat sits again. It watches the surrounding area with a surprising level of alertness. Every small sound makes its ears lift. The rustling of grass, the distant cry of birds, even the faint movement of insects in the air. The cat seems aware of everything happening around them. What makes the situation so unusual is not just the presence of the cat, but the patience it shows. Normally, a wandering animal would quickly continue its journey, but this cat behaves differently. It remains beside the fawn as if waiting for something. Perhaps it senses the weakness of the young deer, or perhaps the cat simply follows an instinct that even humans sometimes struggle to explain. The baby deer tries again to stand, pushing gently against the ground. It manages to lift its body slightly before collapsing back into the grass. The cat immediately moves closer. It circles around the fawn again and sits near its side. Meanwhile, far away, people continue their daily routines. Cars pass, farmers work, and life moves forward in the usual way. But eventually, someone will notice, and when that moment arrives, this unusual partnership will turn into something even more meaningful. Because sometimes the smallest actions create the biggest chances for survival. This is the first step in a rescue story no one could have predicted. Newborn deer are extremely sensitive to time when separated from their mothers. Without regular feeding and protection, their bodies weaken quickly. Even a few hours alone can place them in serious danger. The baby deer's small chest rises and falls slowly, showing signs of exhaustion. Its legs tremble each time it attempts to push itself up from the grass. Once again, the fawn tries to stand. For a brief second, its thin legs manage to support its body. The young deer lifts its head, looking uncertainly toward the open field. But the effort is too much. Within moments, its legs collapse beneath it, and it falls back down gently onto the soft ground. The cat immediately reacts. It stands and moves closer again, circling the fawn as if checking on it. Its tail moves slowly from side to side, and its eyes remain fixed on the tiny deer. There is only a quiet presence that seems almost protective. The cat sits beside the fawn once more. Then something slightly different happens. In the distance, a faint sound begins to break the silence. At first, it is difficult to recognize, blending with the natural sounds. But slowly, the noise becomes clearer. Footsteps. Somewhere nearby, a person is walking along the narrow path. The cat notices the sound immediately. Its body becomes more alert. The baby deer remains still. A few moments later, a human figure appears at the edge of the path. At first, the person seems unaware of what lies hidden. From a distance, the cat and the fawn are difficult to notice. But as the person moves closer, something unusual catches their attention. They stop. The sight is unexpected. A small cat sitting beside what appears to be a baby deer. The person simply watches, trying to understand what they are seeing. 고양이는 도망가지 않습니다. 대신 아기 사슴 곁에 머물며 고요하고 경계심 있게 자리를 지킵니다. 관찰자는 동물들을 놀라게 하지 않으려 천천히 조심스럽게 다가갑니다. 이제 상황이 더 분명해집니다. 아기 사슴은 눈에 띄게 기력이 없고 머리를 들기조차 힘겨워 보입니다. 도움 없이는 더 이상 버티기 어렵다는 것이 분명해 보입니다. 야생동물 전문가들은 어미가 돌아올 수도 있으니 새끼 동물을 함부로 방해하지 말라고 경고하곤 합니다. 하지만 이번 상황은 다릅니다. 아기 사슴은 명백한 고통의 징후를 보이고 있습니다. 그리고 놀랍게도 작은 고양이는 현장을 떠나지 않습니다. 대신 다음에 무슨 일이 일어날지 기다리는 듯 차분한 호기심으로 사람을 지켜봅니다. 들판에 홀로 남겨진 두 동물의 조용한 구조 이야기는 이제 새로운 국면을 맞이하려 합니다. 드디어 진정으로 도움을 줄 수 있는 사람이 나타났기 때문입니다. 그 사람은 좁은 길가에 무릎을 꿇은 채 눈앞에 가냘픈 광경을 주의 깊게 관찰합니다. 아기 사슴은 풀밭에 기운 없이 누워있고 작은 고양이는 이를 지켜보고 있습니다. 잠시 동안 모든 것이 정지한 듯 고요합니다. 평화로운 풍경이 펼쳐지지만 상황의 심각성은 이제 무시할 수 없습니다. 사람은 천천히 휴대폰을 꺼냅니다. 갓 태어난 사슴은 매우 섬세하며 너무 성급한 개입은 때때로 더 많은 문제를 일으킬 수 있습니다. 하지만 사슴의 쇠약함은 분명합니다. 사슴에게 즉시 다가가는 대신 사람은 전문적인 판단을 위해 지역 야생동물 구조단체에 전화를 겁니다. 지시를 기다리는 동안 사람은 안전한 거리에서 관찰을 계속합니다. 작은 고양이는 여전히 아기 사슴 곁을 지키고 있습니다. Even with a human nearby, the cat does not seem frightened or defensive. Instead, it continues sitting beside the baby deer, occasionally turning its head to watch the person, and then looking back toward the fragile animal in the grass. It almost appears as if the cat understands that something important is happening. After a few minutes, the person receives guidance from the rescue team over the phone. The experts ask several questions about the fawn's condition. Is it able to stand? Does it respond to movement? Does it appear injured? The answers confirm the concern. The baby deer is far too weak and has likely been without its mother for too long. The rescue team decides that intervention is necessary. They promise to arrive as quickly as possible, but the nearest wildlife center is still some distance away. Until help arrives, the person is asked to remain nearby and keep the situation calm. The waiting begins. The person sits quietly near the path, making sure not to disturb the fawn while keeping watch over the area. The baby deer occasionally lifts its head slightly but remains mostly still, conserving what little strength it has left. And the small cat continues to stay. Every few minutes, the cat moves gently around the fawn, sometimes sitting beside its head, sometimes near its small body. It watches the surroundings carefully, reacting to every small sound in the field. The quiet partnership between the two animals remains unbroken. Nearly 20 minutes pass before a vehicle finally appears at the end of the dirt road. The sound of the engine grows louder as the wildlife rescue team arrives. 2 trained rescuers step out, carrying the equipment they need to safely handle the delicate situation. They approach slowly. The rescuers have seen many situations like this before, but even they pause for a moment when they notice the cat sitting beside the young deer. It is an unusual sight, one that clearly shows that the fawn has not been completely alone during its difficult hours. One of the rescuers kneels carefully beside the baby deer, speaking softly while checking its condition. The other prepares a soft blanket designed to safely transport injured or weak animals. The fawn barely moves. Its tiny body shows signs of exhaustion, but it is still alive, and that means there is still hope. The rescuers gently lift the baby deer, wrapping it carefully in the soft blanket. Throughout the entire process, the small cat remains nearby, quietly watching. For a moment, the rescuer glances at the cat and smiles slightly, because it is clear that this tiny animal played a role here today. The rescue vehicle prepares to leave, carrying the fragile fawn toward the wildlife center. But even as the story moves towards safety, one small question remains. What will happen to the little cat that refused to walk away? The countryside returns to its normal rhythm. The little cat has not moved far. It sits a short distance away, its eyes following the rescuers as they carry the fragile fawn toward the vehicle. The animal seems calm, almost as if it understands that the situation has changed. The baby deer is no longer alone in the field. Help has arrived, and the next stage of its survival is about to begin. One of the rescuers gently places the wrapped fawn into a padded carrier designed for injured wildlife. Inside the soft blanket, the young deer finally seems to relax slightly. Its breathing remains slow, but the warmth and protection of the carrier provide the first real sense of safety it has experienced in hours. The rescue team works efficiently. One rescuer checks the fawn's condition again, ensuring that it has no visible injuries and that its body temperature is stable enough for transport. Newborn deer are extremely sensitive to cold and stress, so every small detail matters during a rescue like this. Meanwhile, the second rescuer notices the small cat sitting quietly nearby. For a moment, they pause and observe the unusual companion who had stayed beside the deer for so long. The cat does not appear frightened by the humans or their equipment. Instead, it simply watches with calm attention, its ears moving slightly as it listens to every sound around it. The rescuer smiles faintly. "Looks like this little one wasn't completely alone," they say softly. The person who originally discovered the scene nods in agreement. They explain how the cat had been sitting beside the fawn even before anyone arrived. At first it seemed strange, almost unbelievable, but as the minutes passed, it became clear that the small animal had chosen to remain there. Perhaps it was curiosity, perhaps it was instinct, or perhaps it was something deeper that we still don't fully understand about the behavior of animals. The rescuers finish securing the carrier and prepare to leave for the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. The facility has trained veterinarians and specialists who care for orphaned or injured wild animals. There, the baby deer will receive proper nutrition, warmth, and medical attention if necessary. But before the vehicle door closes, one of the rescuers takes a final look toward the cat. The small animal still sits quietly near the edge of the path. It does not attempt to approach the vehicle, nor does it seem anxious about the people nearby. Instead, it simply watches with calm attention. The moment feels strangely peaceful, as if the cat understands that its quiet role in the story has reached its natural end. The rescue vehicle slowly starts its engine. As the tires move along the dirt road, the carrier inside holds the fragile fawn safely in place. The young deer will soon be examined by professionals who can give it the care it desperately needs. Back in the field, the person who called for help remains standing beside the path. They watch the vehicle disappear down the road, they turning their attention back to the small cat. The animal stretches slightly and looks up. For a brief moment, the two simply observe each other. Then the cat stands, calmly walking a few steps through the grass as if returning to its normal wandering routine. And so, life continues its quiet journey in the field. But the quiet rescue that unfolded here will not be forgotten easily. The person who witnessed the entire event takes one last look at the field. Just a short time earlier, a helpless baby deer had been lying alone and vulnerable in the grass. Now that same animal is on its way to safety because a series of small actions came together at the right moment. A wandering cat that refused to walk away, a passerby who stopped and paid attention, and a rescue team that arrived in time to change the outcome. None of these actions seemed dramatic or extraordinary on their own, yet together they created something powerful. A reminder that compassion and awareness can make a real difference, even in the quiet corners of the natural world. And while the baby deer's journey toward recovery is only beginning, the story itself still has one final chapter waiting to unfold. The rescue vehicle continues down the quiet rural road, carrying the fragile baby deer toward the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. Inside the padded carrier, the young fawn remains wrapped in the soft blanket, adjusting to the warmth and safety surrounding it. After hours of weakness and uncertainty in the open field, this is the first moment where its chances of survival truly begin to improve. The journey does not take long. When the vehicle finally arrives at the Wildlife Center, the rescue team carefully carries the carrier inside. The building is calm and organized, designed specifically to care for injured and orphaned animals. Each room is equipped with the tools needed to treat delicate wildlife without causing unnecessary stress. A veterinarian and 2 trained caretakers are already waiting. They gently place the carrier on a padded examination table and slowly unwrap the blanket around the baby deer. The fawn's legs tremble slightly as it tries to move, but the team immediately notices that it is still responsive. That is a very encouraging sign. One of the caretakers carefully checks the deer's breathing and heart rate while the veterinarian examines its eyes, legs, and body for any injuries. Fortunately, there are no visible wounds. The main concern is weakness caused by dehydration and the lack of nourishment. This is common for abandoned or separated fawns. Newborn deer depend almost entirely on their mothers for milk during the first weeks of life. Without that support, their energy levels drop quickly. But if they receive help in time, many of them recover successfully. The veterinarian prepares a special bottle containing a carefully balanced milk formula designed for young deer. The caretakers gently guide the small bottle toward the fawn's mouth. At first, the baby deer hesitates. Then slowly, instinct takes over. The fawn begins to drink. And so, a new journey begins for this little one, a journey made possible by simple acts of kindness. It is a quiet but powerful moment. Every small sip means that the young animal's body is beginning to regain the strength it needs. The caretakers watch carefully to ensure the feeding goes smoothly, speaking softly to keep the fawn calm. Over the next few hours, the deer is placed in a warm and protected enclosure. Designed for young wildlife, the environment is quiet, safe, and monitored closely by the rehabilitation team. Recovery will take time. The fawn will need regular feeding, careful observation, and gradual strengthening of its legs before it can eventually return to the wild. But the most important thing is that it survived the most dangerous moment, the long hours alone in the field, when its future was uncertain. Back in the countryside, the place where the rescue first began has already returned to its peaceful routine. The tall grass moves gently in the wind, and the narrow dirt path remains quiet as people pass by, without knowing the story that unfolded there earlier. Somewhere nearby, the small cat continues its wandering. No one knows exactly where it came from or where it will go next. It moves freely through the fields and trees, following the quiet rhythm of life that animals know so well. But its small role in this rescue will remain unforgettable. Without that cat's quiet presence beside the helpless baby deer, the situation might have looked very different. The tiny animal did not have the strength to cry out for help or move to a safer place, yet the cat's unusual decision to remain nearby created a moment that eventually drew human attention. Sometimes the smallest actions can change the direction of an entire story. A curious cat that refused to leave, a person who chose to stop and look closer, and a rescue team ready to protect a fragile life. Together, those small moments formed a chain of events that gave the young deer a second chance. Stories like this remind us that compassion is not limited to humans. The natural world is full of quiet connections that we do not always notice. Animals, like people, sometimes respond to vulnerability with patience and care in ways that surprise us. And while the baby deer's full recovery will take time, its future now holds hope instead of uncertainty. One day, when the fawn grows strong enough to stand confidently on its own legs again, the rehabilitation team will return it to a safe, natural habitat where it can live freely as part of the wild landscape where it belongs, the quiet field where the story began. We never know exactly what happened there, but somewhere in the forest, a young deer will continue its life, all because one small cat decided not to walk away.